Leadership is a mirror, gentlemen. It reflects who you are, not just at work, but at home too. If you feel like you've got it dialed in at the office, but things are falling apart when you walk through the door at home, you're not alone. Most men feel like they have to pick one or the other, crushing it at work or being fully present at home. But what if I told you that the same qualities that make you an effective leader at work could also transform your relationships at home? Today, we're going to dive deep into the 4 leadership qualities that bridge that gap and make you the kind of man who leads with respect at work and also at home.
Leaders are not born in a womb. They are forged through heat, pressure, and a whole lot of sweat. The Fire Forged Leader podcast serves the audience through exploring leadership at work, in the community, and with the family, using a practical perspective and real-life experiences from the host, Steve Baumgartner, and his guests in The Forge. Now, it's time to enter the Forge with the Fire Forged Leader.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Fire Forged Leader podcast. Thank you for tuning again into this episode. I think you're going to bring home a lot of value today. So just getting this started off right. Sometimes when I come home, I step into the middle of what seems like chaos sometimes. And there's already things that are happening when I'm not there. My wife has been in the trenches with the kids all day long. And by the time I walk through the door, she needs a break, quite frankly. I don't know what's been happening all day, but a lot of times I step in so quickly so that she can tap out for a little bit. But here's the thing. Stepping into leadership at home isn't as straightforward as it sounds. Sometimes, because of the load that she carries and the way that the kids have been behaving, or what has just happened throughout the day, I find myself stepping in like I need to be an authoritative leader. Other times, I take a lighter approach and I end up feeling like I'm not leading at all. And honestly, I've been everywhere in between. And some days, guys, it seems like I have no clue what I'm doing in leadership at the house. But it's in those moments that I also realize that leading at home is just as complex and vitally more important than it is leading at work. The dynamics are different, but the same 4 leadership qualities that I use at work: building influence, communicating clearly, inspiring, and leading with compassion, they apply at the house too. So if you're like me, you've probably felt this tension. You've probably felt like you're an awesome leader at work some days and you come home and it's a total shit show, right? You want to be the leader that your family needs, the leader that your family desires to have in the home, just like you are for your team at work. But it feels like the rules are completely different. But let's break down those 4 qualities so that we can bridge that gap today. The first quality that I want to talk about is influence, all right? Leadership influence, no matter whether it's work or at home, it comes from trust and credibility. Let me say that again. It comes from trust and credibility. At work, you can't demand respect. We all know that. We have to earn it from our team. Now, there's some people out there who think that you can force respect, but that's not true. You have to earn it. At home, influence is about showing up consistently and being someone your family can depend on, that they can truly count on. At work, influence is tied to delivering results and maintaining integrity and a consistent message. At home, presence builds influence. Being there both emotionally and physically. The same things apply, consistency and showing up and being results oriented and things like that. But you also need to show up very emotionally and physically for your family. So at work, one thing that you can do to build up your influence with your team is schedule one-on-one meetings with your team. And then you can help them connect the dots in between what they do and the company mission. And connect them to that mission so that they can feel like they're part of the results. But you can also talk to them about their challenges and help them through their struggles and coach them along the way. And you can build influence through that. At home, what I'd suggest you do is create rituals, like having nightly check-ins with your wife or consistent activities with your kids. I've talked about it before, and I'll talk about it again, but my wife and myself, we have a routine every morning. We read the Gospels together, we pray together, we talk about each other's day during a meeting time that we have every morning. With your kids, schedule time to go out and have one-on-one time with each one of them. Have time when you sit down and you play games. Just build in that time into your life, and you'll be amazed on how much your influence grows. Sitting in front of the TV and watching football games, that doesn't build any influence. Influence isn't demanded at work or at home. It's given through investment in others. Influence is built when we invest in others, whether it's at work or at home. The second quality is communication. So communication is the bridge between intention and action. All right, let me say that again. Communication is the bridge in between intention and action. So miscommunication, it derails projects at work and it derails relationships at home. At work, communication is more than just instructions. It's two-way dialogue, people. A lot of leaders don't understand this. They believe communication is go do X, Y, Z, when really it should be, hey guys, here's what I want to do. Here's the road that I want to take this team on, and here's the reason why. And explain that to them, explain the reason why, and then ask them for their input. Ask them for, hey guys, do you see any reasons why we can't do this? Or do you think that there's something better that we should go after? Or does this make sense? You know, and start that two-way dialogue with your people at work. At home, assumptions lead to misunderstandings. I have this phrase where I tell people that the mind fills in stories when there's a gap of knowledge. All right? So at home, assumptions, it leads to misunderstandings. So a prime example of this at home is with your wife, right? This is going to get a little sensitive here, so I'm going to keep this kind of broad. But let's say that your sexual relationship with your wife isn't on track. Our minds start to fill in the gaps where we don't have knowledge. Wow, she's mad about X, Y, and Z, and that's why she's not making love with me. Or, you know, this, that, or the other, or she doesn't love me anymore, or whatever the case may be. Our minds fill in those gaps. We have stories, and we just fill in this gap that we have. When really it just might be that she doesn't feel close to you right now. Men and women look at things differently, and I could go into all the science behind this, but when it comes to making love, men do it for the physical nature of it. Generally. Women generally do it for that bond or the closeness. So we have to bridge that gap. But when we don't discuss these things, when we don't discuss that issue, what happens is that our minds fill in the gaps with all these assumptions that lead to misunderstandings. So we need to be clear, we need to be empathetic, and we need to communicate so that we can prevent those misunderstandings. And at work, one way that we can do that, by the way, I'm not saying have sex at work, but the same holds true at work. If we have gaps, if assumptions fill in those gaps, right? So what we need to do is we need to hold weekly team meetings. At a minimum, I have daily team meetings, but at a minimum, we need to hold weekly team meetings so that we have clear priorities that the entire team understands, but also build in that space for feedback from our team members. At home, it doesn't look that much different. We have these spaces for feedback, but for some odd reason, I see a lot of parents go out there and they try and be more authoritative because I said so, right? But we need to have that same space for feedback. And then we need to practice reflective listening. Because we come at home differently, we need to practice this more. So what we need to do, especially with our spouses, is we need to summarize what they say and reflect back what our spouse says. We need to do this with our kids too. And I've been doing this a lot with my youngest. He's going through some speech therapy right now. I don't understand everything that comes out of his mouth, and I made a lot of assumptions before. But I've been trying to do this reflective listening with him. So when he says something, I might ask what once or twice, but then I repeat back. Are you asking me if you should put your gloves on? And he says yes, or he says no, but he feels heard. So here's the mindset shift in all this. Communication, it's not about being heard. It's not about the receiver hearing me. It's about creating understanding in between the two parties so that we're aligned in mission. All right, the next section is we as leaders, whether it's at work or at home, we need to inspire and we need to motivate. So leaders inspire by connecting actions to a larger purpose. You often hear me talk about vision on the show. And it means the same at work and at home. We need to have a vision. We need to know where we're going. You heard me say it before, and I'm going to say it again right now, but to take on any journey, and life is a journey, right? Work is a journey. Your home life is a journey. Your personal well-being is a journey. Everything's a journey. But to go on any journey in life, you need to know 2 points. You need to know where you're starting and where you're going to end up. And if you don't know either one of those, either one, you can know one and not the other. But if you don't understand both of those clearly, you're already lost. So at work, you need to talk about meaningful goals. At home, it can be goal-oriented as well, but it's about giving your family a sense of direction. You don't have to sit there and map out SMART goals if you don't want to. I like the concept myself, but your family's got to know what direction they're heading, and they got to have hope to know that they can get there, just like at work. So at work, we inspire through vision, not fear, not fear. And I'm speaking directly to someone who I think needs to learn this. But anyways, that's a whole nother topic. We need to show our people, and I said it earlier, but we need to show how their work contributes to the larger mission. At home, we need to be the visionary. We need to cast a vision for our family that brings us together as a family. It needs to bring us together as a family. So I mentioned it before, and I'm having a lot of repeats in this, I noticed, but this is kind of wrapping things up pretty nicely on some topics. But my wife has this saying that simply says, Baumgartners do hard things. Now, that motto, that goes directly, guys, into our overall vision. It directly aligns with that. And it's something that our kids can say and keep in their minds and whatever. And it brings us together as a family, and it brings hope. So at work, we need to start projects by explaining their purpose and why they matter. All right. So we're in January. January is generally a time that, early January is generally a time when you initiate the new goals with your team. You need to explain why each goal matters. There's going to be some people in your team who are totally disconnected from the goal today. Tomorrow, that better not be the case. Because if that's the case, you failed as a leader. Let me say that again. You failed as a leader if they don't understand how they connect to the company goals. At home, share a family vision, whether it's, short-term planning for a trip, or you're creating traditions that are for the long term. You need to share a family vision. A prime example of this one is, I don't know how many people that I hear have marriages where there's two completely distinct, different religions in the home, that it turns out well. Now, I will tell you that I have a friend who is Catholic and his wife's Jewish, and those are a little bit different apart, and they make it work. So it can work. But it does propose challenges. Most of the time, though, it does not work because the visions are totally different if the faith matters in the home. So here's the mindset shift on this one. Inspire both at work and at home by showing the why behind the what. Showing the why behind the what. All right, the fourth and final quality. There's a lot of other qualities, but these are the four main ones that bridge the gap in between work and home. But the fourth one is compassion. All right, compassion. I don't even want to talk about compassion. I can hear it rolling around in your head already. But compassion, guys, it builds trust and connection. At work, it humanizes you as a leader, all right? At home, it deepens relationships by showing that you understand. So at work, recognize and address struggles within your team with support. If you have two people that are just not getting along, and you go out there and you're like, this shit just needs to stop, I don't care, blah, blah, blah. That stuff, what it does is it hurts your team. It doesn't build any rapport. It doesn't humanize you as a leader. What it does is it tears your team down. Now, if you take that same situation and you go up and you go, hey, Bob, what's going on here, right? Can you tell me a little bit more about why you and Joe don't get along so well? And you listen and you respond back without judgment. You can't take sides in this, right? And then you go up to Joe and you go, hey, Joe, what's been going on here? What's the beef, right? Most of the time what you're going to do when you do that is you're going to find out that they feel like they're in opposition to goals, or there's some other issue that's going on that's been unresolved, sometimes 10, 20 years old, right? But if you take that time, what you're going to do is you're going to repair relationships in your team, and you're also going to build rapport as a leader. Because I don't care what anybody says, when they go to work, they don't want to sit there and have nonstop agitation. They want to go to work, do what they're supposed to do, and go home and do whatever they like to do after they get off work. That's what they want to do. It's a lot easier for them if things are calm, cool, and collected. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a small percentage of people who like conflict. I mean, we see it in the political arena all the time. There's people out there just poking. So, bringing this back to at home, we also need to respond to conflict with curiosity rather than frustration. So it's easy to get upset with our kids. It's easy to get upset with our kids. They're not doing what we want them to do it, blah, 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 blah. Well, guys, they have feelings too. They have emotions. And I heard this the other day, and I'm trying to remember who said it, but the statement was that we are emotional beings with logic as a subcomponent. We are emotional beings with logic as a subcomponent to our being, not logical beings with emotions. And I thought that was interesting because we often as leaders don't think about it that way. What we think about is we try and attack everything through logic. But if we deal with the curiosity and the way people feel, we're going to win every time. So here's some practical tips. At work, ask your team, what's one thing I can do to better support you this week? And ask them for that feedback. Let them know that it's okay to give you that feedback, because there's a lot of times that leaders don't allow for the space for the feedback, or they ask for it but don't really want it. So when someone gives you some sort of criticism or something that you can improve on, tell them thank you and then work towards implementing it. At home, offer empathy during conflict. Listen and validate emotions before you respond. Honey, I hear what you're saying in this. This is what I believe that you're saying. Is that correct? I can understand why you'd be hurt in that situation. I can understand why you're frustrated. I've been there before and I get it. And then we can go on with the response. Honey, I get where you're feeling that right now. If you allow me to, I'd like to explain what I really meant by it so that we can try and clear this up. And here's the mindset shift on compassion. Compassion, guys, it's not weakness. It's not weakness. The mindset shift needs to be a strength for your leadership style. Now, guys, when you focus on these 4 qualities, influence, communication, inspiring, and compassion, you're going to see a transformation. You're going to see that at work with your team. They're going to perform better. And your family, well, they're going to see the leader that you truly are. So I want you to take these 4 qualities that you learned today and start applying them in your life. There's no reason to wait, guys. There's no reason to wait. Start chipping away at these 4 qualities. And as you're listening to this, Tuesday, January 28th, when this episode drops, this is your last call to join me for a free webinar that I'm going to be hosting called the Forged Leader Blueprint. And what I'm going to be doing in this webinar is teaching you strategies on how to become a better leader, make more money, and strengthen your relationships at home. Also, if you want to take your leadership to the next level and you just feel stuck, reach out to me so that we can have a conversation on how to get you unstuck. You can find me on all the socials at Fire Forged Leader. Once again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. listening to this show, engaging with it, engaging with me on the socials. And once again, I ask you, just so that we can keep this thing up on the top of the charts, give it a rating, give it a review, leave me a comment, smash the like button, subscribe, all those things on whatever platform you're currently listening to this on. And I'll see you out there.
You have just experienced the heat and pressure of the forge. Remember, words without action are meaningless. Now, after the heat of the forge, shape your thoughts, quench your brain, then put your new tools to use, adding to your leadership. Tune in next week for more lessons from the forge.